After 20 years of building together through dust, deadlines, and damn good ideas, Pace and Adam invite you to join them for honest conversations about the home building world. Welcome to Build Connected, where experience meets insight, powered by Diamond Home Restoration.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Build Connected, episode 61. Adam is in the picture. Hello.
Hello, everybody. I'm still on vacation. Pace. It's what time is it? It's 8:20 a.m. here in Indonesia, and I'm thinking it's what time is it? 4:20 where you are? 5:20?
None of that matters. The thing that matters is it's plus 1 day.
Yes. It's we are a day later than you. I don't even know what
Yeah.
day it is.
All right. So there it is. You're in Indonesia. Tell us about the trip. How is the trip going?
Oh my God, amazing. We started out in a beach town, and then we moved to the jungle for a few days, and now we're in a different beach town. Right now we're in Lombok, spelled Lombok. K is silent, so I learned because I got made fun of for saying Lombok, but it's not Lombok. There's two different Lombas though. There's Lamba Bali, and then there's Lamba the beach town, which is two completely different places. So you got to be clear on where you are and where you intend to go, or you might end up in a place that is not very happy.
Do you know which one you're in?
Let me look out the window. There's a beach out there, so I think I'm in the beach town.
Okay. The one thing that's a constant for you is everybody makes fun of the Philly accent. So there's nothing new there.
You know, it's funny. Everybody thinks we're from Australia here. I mean, the accent couldn't be more different, but I mean, it's amazing, not amazing, but the people that are from Indonesia, they don't travel out of their country. Not very many do. So even with my accent, they really have no idea that I'm from the United States. They have to ask me where I'm from. But it's funny. There's a couple of young kids that run around the area here, and they try to sell you bracelets. But these kids are smart. One kid, he asked me, "Where are you from?" I said, "California." And I said, "You know what the capital of California is?" And he said, without even flinching, "Sacramento." I was like, "Wow." I'm like, "How do you know that?" And he said, "I ask a lot of questions with a lot of people, and I learn in school." So I bought a couple of bracelets. Anyway, I got this little pink bracelet there.
I like that.
Funny kids. Anyway,
I'm not
yeah.
going to ask the I'm not going to ask the follow-up if you knew what the capital was. That's not an important question to ask.
Fair enough. I
All right. Well,
learned something.
tell me about the jungle. So a lot of monkeys. What was the jungle experience?
The jungle was amazing. I mean, we did a little mountain bike tour through all the towns, and they're Hindu over there, and so there's temples on every block, and they're outdoor temples that are every home has their own temple. And they give offerings multiple times a day, and the offerings are like a basket with some fruit, and there's incense lit on every single street and house. I mean, the smells are amazing. The food is fantastic. I'm kind of done with chicken and rice. We actually found a place that had a burger last night, so that was pretty nice. But yeah, the jungle was great. There's monkeys all over the place. My younger daughter definitely was toying with a monkey, and then that monkey knew it and started to chase her, and she freaked out. But I've got all the pictures, every frame of her running away from the monkey. It was fantastic.
Maybe I'll put a couple up on the video here so we can watch along with it. Well, I mean, you've got a temple in your backyard too, right? You've got that offering to the pizza god on your kitchen counter in the backyard.
Yeah, I'm ready to make some pizzas when I get home, that's for sure. The pizza here is not what you're familiar with, but yeah, that's coming. But I'm enjoying it. I feel like it took me a week to settle in and relax, so I'm finally relaxed. It's pretty
I
nice.
mean, I like when we've traveled. I remember specifically being in Morocco, like the national dish is tagine, right? And I was so excited the first one or two times to have it, and then at the end of like week two, like I did not want to see another tagine. You just get
Yeah, yeah,
overloaded.
it's kind of over the chicken and rice. And the money, the rupiah here, right? I mean, 1 million rupiah is like $5 to $6. So these high numbers, like it's funny. Anyway,
Yeah, you're not
yeah,
a math guy. That's a lot of numbers for you.
I've got the calculator app on my phone. Don't
Nice,
worry,
nice.
it's been good. But yeah, I
Well,
mean
that's great stuff. So you're back this weekend, and you'll get back in the swing of things, and it'll be another great trip in the books for the family.
that's right. Back to work.
Well, all right. I want to start off talking today about some. It's kind of a follow up on last week. When CJ was on, he mentioned trade journals. As back when he got into the game, that was how he was learning, was getting information, was learning about products, and the same thing is true for you and I. Like I remember, I always bring up Remodeler magazine and JLC and Fine Home Building. The difference. Well, the thing that you got from that was you got kind of knowledge articles, right, about techniques and just construction details and that sort of thing. But you also were introduced, whether it was in a story or in an advertisement, new products. And there was a trust element there, right? That the journal that you were reading had kind of vetted those either techniques or products, and so you could kind of trust that since they were standing behind it, it was probably something you should try. I think about how that's changed, and how we're getting our information now. Like if we're on Instagram, say, everybody's creating content and, everybody is sponsoring their products. So stuff, it comes at you fast and furious. And, you don't know, kind of the quality of these things. So you really need to rely on your experience, your judgment on whether or not something, is worth trying out. It was just interesting to me how that's all changed.
Yeah, no doubt. First off, your podcast last week with CJ was fantastic. You had just met him, and I know we're going to be looking forward to working with him in the future. But it was great to learn a little bit more about him because we've seen some of his stuff on the Build Show Network and the things that he's been doing with Matt Risinger. But it was really great, and looking forward to meeting with him. But also makes me realize how old I think I am because I always make fun of how old you are, but he's the young guy, right? I mean, I'm 49. I don't know how old you are. You're super old, but he's 40. He's definitely the young buck. But yeah, the trade journals. It's funny. I brought a stack of them with me on my trip here to read on the plane, on the beach, and this is one of our trusted right here that I have on my bedside here.
For those
Um,
of you who aren't watching, he's holding up a copy of Fine Home Building.
Yeah, we've got the Find My Home Building magazine. What's funny here is we talked about helical piers in the podcast before the one with CJ, and there's a whole article here on the helical piers and how a guy built his house on top of them. But yeah, for us being professionals and general contractors, it takes time, right? To find those trusted people on Instagram and whatnot. And, one of those people being Matt Risinger and the Build Show, like the fact that we've been doing this so long and you follow people for a while, you really get to understand that their background is real and that they kind of fall in the same sort as we do in terms of their beliefs and their intent and interest in learning new stuff. But for homeowners too, right? I think that a lot of DIY people are just kind of going online as they should, right? To get information because that's how we all utilize the internet now is for that kind of info. But yeah, I mean, we always say trust but verify. There's so much information out there, and how do you know that you're getting something that's trusted like these fine home building magazines where there's they're only putting people in there that are really doing things that are professionally done. You don't. So yeah, it takes time to do your research, but just be wary, and over time you kind of learn who those legitimate people are on Instagram and YouTube and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's funny today. So here's both ends of the spectrum. Um, After work today, I was watching This Old House on TV, and I learned something. Something that I had, I didn't understand. Um, I grew up in Maine, and I'm fully aware of pipes freezing. Um, it's happened at our camp, and I thought the problem occurred in a different way than it actually does. So watching them do their demo was super informative to me, and I learned something that I didn't know. And I'm going to compare that with something I saw on Instagram this morning, right? I saw this guy, I don't know who he is, right? He was talking about like this speedy way to construct, like it was a connection for a deck post. And what he was saying was just so wrong. It was so non-code compliant, right? And he was like all authoritative and like, this is how you got to do it. And I'm just like, well, that's wrong. That's just, no inspector is going to allow that. And it's making the point, right? There's nobody vetting that information. So be careful. Trust, what did you say?
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. That's it. Be mindful, trust but verify.
You talk about code compliant. It's funny. When I think you probably do the same thing as a general contractor when you're traveling, right? You're always looking at the architecture and how things are built in another country. But it's interesting. At every single bathroom in Indonesia that I've been in, they all have a floor drain in the corner next to the toilet. I mean, that makes sense. How come we don't do that? How many times has the toilet overflowed and you get water all over the floor? I mean, I guess that's the purpose why they have these drains, and then there's a slight pitch to the corner. And these kind of higher end places, everything's inspected. They have to go through a permitting process. I was talking to one of the locals. Anyway, I thought it was interesting that sometimes you find things that make a lot of sense in a far off land that you think why are we not doing something like that?
Well, I mean, I think that's the norm in Europe too, right? They treat bathrooms as a wet room. So it's super common to find a drain in that room. And you're right, it makes a ton of sense. So I don't know why we don't do it. It certainly exists like in commercial settings, but it seems like it makes a ton of sense. The other thing that makes me think of, you mentioned international building. Like one thing I'm always struck by when we're like on vacation, say in Mexico or something, is how fast things still happen. Like we can be gone, a year can have passed between visits, and we'll come back and there's a whole new hotel there, right? Today I was listening to a podcast acquired on Walt Disney, and they were talking about building Disneyland. They built that park, the actual construction, day one to opening day, 11 months to build Disneyland. Like, we can't get a permit for a kitchen in 11 months in California. Like,
No
how
doubt.
crazy is that?
That's crazy. Yeah. Wow.
That
Look at me. I
that's
learned something new.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, today you're gonna dig into something that, can be improved upon. What are you gonna talk about?
Yeah, this is for the business owners out there. It doesn't matter what business you're in. We as contractors, we have all of our finance people in the background, right? We have our bookkeepers and our accountants, but specifically the bookkeeping is pretty important to our kind of daily activities, right? Like we really want to know if we're being profitable. I mean, I think there's a lot of contractors out there. You kind of check your account, and if there's money in it, you're doing all right. But you got to dig deeper to really know how your business is doing. And so the bookkeeping is really important to our business model, and we really want to review that at the end of every month and just check our P&L and see maybe where we're over budget or under budget. See where our overhead costs are, and I think the truth is you get what you pay for with a bookkeeper, right? It's not an inexpensive um, thing to find somebody that's high quality. And we've had a couple of different bookkeepers over the years, and it's always been it's been a bit difficult, I think, for us over the past year or so. We've had a new bookkeeper, and if you get delayed in getting questions back, our bookkeeper provides us with questions at the end of every month to kind of fill in the blanks. And if more than 1 month goes by, you end up with, a list of questions that covers 2 months or 3 months. So you really want to find that person that's staying on top of your bookkeeping either on a daily or at least a monthly basis, right? So I think we're in a good place now. You sometimes you got to rattle that cage to make sure that your bookkeeper is staying on top of things and that you get your questions and information completed at the end of every month so you can really do your analysis and you don't get a backlog of things that you need to provide. But any case, it's an important part of any business is really knowing your numbers and finding somebody that can really break those things down for you in an efficient and effective way and staying on top of it.
Yeah, let me kind of drill down a little bit on some of the important numbers in the P&L, right? Like a bookkeeper is going through every receipt, whether it's timesheets or receipts for materials, and they're coding and classifying it, right? We're taking that pile of receipts and then we're tying it to our initial estimate that we've done on a job. And that's our check and balance. It lets us see like how good we were at the beginning and predicting what the cost would be. And so this is our rubber meets the road, right? We can see on each line, whether it's plumbing or framing, whether we made some money or we lost some money, right? And I think as a contractor, you need to be able to answer a few questions. First of all, like trade by trade, you need to say on every job, did this make money or did it lose money? You also need to be able to say, this is my overhead, right? You need to, after everything is kind of said and done, maybe this isn't on a monthly basis, maybe it's quarterly or maybe it's yearly. Um, what is my overhead, right? So you can properly account for that because that falls outside of the individual job. And similarly, profit. Like as a company, you should have a mindset of, hey, we are here not to break even. We're here to make money, right? We're going to take that money and we're going to improve both our employees and the capital that we have, whether that's tools or trucks or your cell phone, right? So you need to know those numbers. Someone asks you what your profit is, you need to be able to answer that question. Otherwise, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, look, every contractor does things a little differently too, and I think we talked about this before. If you're a homeowner looking for a contractor, are you paying based on time and material or cost plus, they might call it, or fixed pricing? And our jobs are typically fixed pricing. So look, if you're cost plus or time and material, chances are you're making money, right? Every line item, whatever your invoices from your subcontractor and whatever your material cost is, you're billing that cost plus your markup plus profit and overhead. But what we do fixed bids. So look, on some line items, like you said, framing, we might lose a little bit of money on our labor, but maybe on another line item, you win some a little bit. So there's that kind of give and take. But through going through these P&Ls, it helps us analyze job after job, if we're off a little bit, maybe we need to make adjustments. I mean, material costs, right, over the years have gone up quite a bit. And I think you and I have had conversations like, listen, our material costs have been a little bit off. We've lost not, we haven't made our proper markup on that line item, so we have to increase that. So those P&Ls help us identify those line items a little bit better and clarify things for us.
No doubt. The only thing I'll add to that, even if you're cost plus or T&M, if you've got a big office, supporting your operation, um, that falls into that overhead category. So, if you're just billing, the guys that are on the ground in a project, and they're getting marked up X amount, you still need to cover salaries for your entire operation, right? And rent on like maybe an office space. So, um, there is thought that goes into that model too, right? You just need to you need to make sure you're covering all your costs. But yeah, I mean, it all comes back to bookkeeping, right? If you're not tracking, and that comes down to coding receipts and making sure you're doing data entry. If you're not doing that, you're just guessing.
Yeah. those overhead costs, they add up quick, right? I mean, like you and I were pretty lean and mean, right? We have our home offices that we work out of. I think a lot of contractors, they want the shop space, they want the office space, and for a lot of people that makes sense, and for some it doesn't, because it gets expensive quick. So, you and I, we have shop space where we kind of keep materials and we do a little bit of carpentry in, but we have our home office. So you got to figure out what's right for you and make sure you keep track of all those things. So I think the moral of this story is good bookkeeping and really analyze your P&Ls at the end of each month so you can stay on top of what your numbers are.
You need to know those numbers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, wow, that was a great episode from a very, very remote location. Tell me about what's the return trip? That's coming up in a few days here.
Yeah, we're gonna head back to Singapore first, from here, and then we have a layover in Singapore. We only had a quick stop there on the way here, so we didn't really get to enjoy the airport there, but it's pretty insane, like a giant mall. We'll tool around there, and then we'll hop on a plane for 16 hours and fly back to San Francisco. So, yeah, it's a long flight. Got a lot of movies downloaded. I got a lot of fine home building magazines to catch up on. But yeah, you'll be seeing my face next week. Lucky you.
Awesome. Well, I've got 2 days to put together my shopping list for Singapore, so I'll be sure to text that to you, and then I'll see you on the return.
Love it. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for another great episode here on Build Connected. I'm Adam.
And I'm Pace.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us on Build Connected. For more stories, insights, and ideas, visit diamondhomerestoration.com or find us on Instagram and LinkedIn. We'll be back next week. We hope you will too.